Welcome back, True Seeker. After J.D. Vance's failed peace talk with Iranian leadership on Saturday, April 11th, that reportedly went 21 hours carrying into April 12th, later in the same day, April 12th, Trump ordered a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz using two U.S. Navy vessels. And think about these dates, April 11th and April 12th. The first can be written 11/4, and we talked about how J.D. Vance, he had his meeting 114 days from his upcoming birthday as well. Not to mention his birthday, August 2nd, is the day in history that the Gulf of Tonkin incident began that got us involved in the Vietnam War, and obviously that also had to do with the Navy. But yeah, April 11th can be written 11/4 like 114, and April 12th is the 102nd day of the year. And of course, on this day in history, back in 1861, the American Civil War began. And in that story, not a single person was killed in the first battle of the American Civil War, but it was either a horse or a cow was. I forget, it was probably a horse. Anyway, if you're new here, this practice of coding numbers into words, gematria or gematria from Kabbalah. It's based on the alphabetic order forwards and backwards with numerology. Notice how World War equates to 114 and 102, and Art of War equates to 102 and 114, and the reason the world knows about that text credited to Sun Tzu is because of the Jesuit priest Father Amiot. Those numbers are huge in the Pearl Harbor incident, if you did not know, and they're also very relevant to September 11th, where the U.S. simulated the attack by Al-Qaeda on June 1st, 2001, 102 days before September 11th. Of course, Al-Qaeda also equals 102. Something interesting, the French Jesuit priest who translated Art of War, he titled it Art Militaire de Chinois, which means, Art of War of Chinese, French translation, but it's also 114. Isn't that interesting? And yeah, if you forgot, in the early days of this war, CNN had to give you this shot. Out of all the shots they could have given you, they gave you one with a jet with a 102 on it. So today, April 12th, the day of the blockade, today has a life lesson number in numerology of 26. Blockade equates to 26. If you don't use numerology, blockade equates to 53. And remember, that's what was coded all over yesterday's peace talks, 53 with the meeting in Pakistan and the BBC's headline, putting the parentheses on clearing out, but it reminded of Thessalonians, or 1 Thessalonians 5:3, about how from when they say peace comes sudden destruction. So, yeah, I just wanted to point these things out, how the war continues to unfold by the numbers, how they continue to build on the World War III narrative. Remember, Netanyahu returned to power December 29, 2022 on Albert Pike's birthday, who authored the letter about 3 world wars to come, which was published August 15, 1871 on the Jesuit order's birthday. And by the way, the Navy vessels that they're using to conduct this blockade, the USS Frank E. Peterson Jr. and the USS Michael Murphy. I want you to see what's interesting about these vessels. Frank E. Peterson, this Navy vessel named after this man who died in 2015, it was awarded June 3rd, 2013. How many times have I talked about the upcoming date, June 3rd, in light of this war? If you've missed all my work on why we got June 3rd circled in a major way, here's one more clue. And he died at 83. Again, if you haven't seen my work on June 3rd, every time I've talked about where the number 83 coincides with June 3rd. So definitely go back and revisit my work on June 3rd, an upcoming date. And the other ship being used is the Michael P. Murphy, man who died in combat in Afghanistan in 2005. coming up on the 21st anniversary of his death. Remember, we had this 21-hour meeting yesterday. War equals 21, like Jesuit. The Jesuits serve the Pope. But notice today they use his ship 210 days after the Pope's birthday in the blockade at Michael P. Murphy. 210. Yesterday, the meeting over peace had a lot to do with what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz 209. They were having the meeting 209 days after the Pope's birthday. Again, all events in this war coordinated by the numbers, synced with the Pope and the superior general. So I suppose this topic's just too boring for most people to follow along with. But yeah, again, if you missed yesterday's quick recap, it was 42 days after the war began that they had the peace meeting, trying to avoid World War III. Again, World War equates to 114 and 42, as does history. They refer to it as historic. It was 114 days from J.D. Vance's 42nd birthday. His birthday, again, is the anniversary of the Gulf of Tonkin incident beginning. And funny enough, Gulf of Tonkin incident equals 102. Again, the meeting carried into the 102nd day of the year, April 12th. The anniversary of the start of the American Civil War. So, yeah. If you weren't with me, I did put out a prediction. I remember New Year's Day 2021, January 1st, 2021. I said, look for the upcoming 21 war ritual. And it ended up being Burma's military overthrowing the government on February 1st, which instigated a civil war, which is still ongoing. And that out of sight, out of mind thing, they don't really talk about what's going on in Burma anymore. But none of that has stopped since February 1st of 2021. Major inconvenience for the people who live in that nation. You know, my sweet lady, her family's from there. Her parents have had to relocate numerous times because of the ongoing military harassment of the people ever since February 1st, 2021. But yeah, they had to tell you it was a 21-hour meeting yesterday that failed as they tried to negotiate a peace deal in this war where every last thing reported about it is by the numbers. And it does all point back to those damn Jesuits. So anyway, we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker.